like to welcome our guest of honor, Justice R.C. Lahoti, 35th Chief Justice of India, who is a jurist extraordinaire. His contributions to evolution of arbitration in India is not just unparalleled, but unprecedented. Justice Lahoti is also a much celebrated author. We are honored to have Sir joining us today. On behalf of Campus Law Center, I thank you, sir, for accepting our invite and for addressing the inaugural session of International Conference on Law and Spirituality. I yield the floor to you, sir.
Thank you, Kajal. Professor Seema Singh, Professor Raman Mittal, distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen. The organizers, especially Professor Seema Singh, deserve to be congratulated for organizing this symposium on a theme which is unique and innovative. The significance of the subject cannot be denied, but it has not captured the attention of the jurists and the legal circles so much as it deserves. The truth is that law and spirituality cannot be separated, and yet, of late, the two seem to be drifting away from each other. Law and spirituality have a lot many things in common, as we shall shortly see. Let me begin by leaning a little on the lighter side. The first common feature of the two, law and spirituality, is that it is not easy to define any of the two. Yet, it cannot be denied that the basic features, the fundamentals of the law and the spirituality remain the same, for such fundamentals are eternal. Spirituality is the quality that involves deep feelings and beliefs of a religious nature rather than the physical parts of life. Oxford defines the quality of being concerned with the human spirit or soul as opposed to material or physical things. The shift in priorities allows us to embrace our spirituality in a more profound way. Our ancient classics and epics are replete with hints of secret doctrines and mystic truths. Illustratively, Vedas, Puranas, Smriti, Shruti, and Upanishad are collectively the source of religion and also of spirituality as well of the law. The mysterious secret taught by the Upanishads is that the soul or spiritual consciousness is the only source of true knowledge. Collectively, they are the source of dharma. Interestingly, these are also considered as the primary source of law. Muslims believe their holy book to be the source of law and also the path of achieving spirituality. Arnold said, law can never be defined. Austin defined law as a command of the sovereign. Salmon has criticized the definition of Austin for two reasons. First, the definition is inadequate, as the greater part of a legal system consists of laws which neither command nor forbid things to be done. Customs and traditions are outstanding examples. Secondly, Austin has missed the ethical element in law or the idea of right or justice. He solely goes by the efficacy of the command. Law is the declaration of the principles of justice. According to Salmon, law is an instrument of justice. Demosthenes wrote, every law is a gift of God and decision of sages. This is law to which all men yield obedience for many reasons, and especially because every law is a discovery and gift of God, and at the same time, the decision of wise men. The ancient texts of jurisprudence and religion both have used dharma, nyaya, and vidhi, that is, religion, justice, and law, as interchangeable terms. Law and spirituality both aim at establishing law and order in society. Any political system which aims at achieving peace and prosperity for the people must have recourse to ensuring enforcement of law and preservation of order. Such object would be an utopia unless law and spirituality come together and act hand in hand. There is much in common in the two. Let me enumerate a few features which are common to both. One, there is no place for superstitions, fantasy, or escapism in truly spiritual life and in a truly legal society. Two, spiritual progress and application of laws, none in any way blocks scientific and materialistic progress. In fact, it gives altruistic touch and prudent directions to both so that progress will not be focused towards luxury, comfort, and worldly profits only. None would permit in achieving and empowering only some privileged few. Three, scientific and materialistic progress within the four corners of law, guided by spirituality, would lead to the creation of a holistic growth whose benefits would reach out to the whole of humanity. The two acting hand in hand in every front of life would elevate happiness and illuminate the future. Four, a perfect enactment and enforcement of laws requires tap and sadhana. So does the spirituality. Tapa means self-restraint, penance, and voluntary observance of ascetic disciplines for chiseled self-refinement. Sadhana is a process of self-discipline, self-improvement, self-transformation, and inner ascent by individual efforts. Positive orientation of thoughts, broadening of attitude, cultivation of virtuous qualities, and sincere practice for their adoption in conduct are integral parts of sadhana. Ladies and gentlemen, we, the India, are a constitutional democracy. Our constitution is the law of the laws, a source of all the laws. It can be said that the power exercised by the king now belongs to the constitution. Under the constitution, the law belongs to the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. One makes the law, the second enforces the law, third, the judiciary interprets the law and tells what the law is. The judiciary has also been ordained to perform the task of overseeing the enforcement of laws and also to keep the legislature and the executive within the bounds laid down by the Constitution. The grievance is never ending of delay and disposal of cases and mounting arrears in the courts. Major part of litigation will come to an end if each of the three wings of governance voluntarily adopt the discipline of imbibing spirituality in the performance of their respective duties. Recently, the Honorable CJI observed that laws are not being passed with the requisite care and caution, and that is the cause of increasing litigation. I also read the observation of Honorable the CGI as telling that the parliament is lacking in spirituality. What he said was lacking in spirituality. Spirituality abhors is superficial or perfunctory performance of function. The courts are called upon to correct the actions of executive as they were not performed with honesty, sincerity, and consistent with the rule of law, the traits which belong to the realm of spirituality. Honorable judges, when they enter in their offices, are required to take the oath of bearing true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India, to perform their duties without fear or favor, affection or ill will, and to uphold the Constitution and the laws. By what the judges swear or solemnly affirm to stand by, all lie within the domain of spirituality, and they are tap and sadhana, which enable the judges to emerge true to their oath. I recall a great judge having said that a judge cannot be a true judge and cannot dispense justice unless he has a spiritual bent of mind. I venture to say that some of the judgments delivered by the highest court of the country have a potential to break the moral and ethical fiber of the society. And this has happened because the honorable judges, though learned, were overawed by materialistic and worldly needs of the people. And while doing so, they have unwittingly downsized the wisdom and discretion dictated by spirituality. Legal rules have an important role to play in making possible an effective realization of morality in the actual behavior of human beings. Moral principles cannot function in a social vacuum or in a war of all against all. Just two examples. One, do not take what belongs to another is about as trite an example of a moral precept as can be found in the books. But to decide what belongs to another, we resort not to morals but to law. Do not take what belongs to another must of necessity less on standards borrowed from the law, and without that support, it could not achieve reality in the conduct of human affairs. The institution of marriage, this is the second example. The institution of marriage has moral implications, but this institution can scarcely function morally or legally without defining and upholding the marital status. Among the Eskimos, the concept of marriage exists, but there are no clear signposts demarcating the beginning and the end of a marital relationship. The result is that what one man use as a fair contest for the lady's favors, the other may see it as an adulterous invasion of the home. Ladies and gentlemen, the existence and conscientious administration of a legal system cannot be unrelated to a realization of such moral objectives in the affairs of life, which are dictated by the wisdom of spirituality. These are the few thoughts for your consideration, and I hope that this seminar, so well organized, is going to be a long leap in the direction of restoring the unity of law with spirituality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And my question is, sir, you have written a wonderful book on the preamble of the Indian Constitution, which is also considered as the key to open the mind of the constitution makers. Now, when we talk about the Constitution of India, most of the things have been adopted from one country or another country. But the important thing is when we are going to interpret the Constitution, whether we are also adopting foreign interpretations when we are going to interpret these terms, Or once we are talking about the relationship between spirituality and law, do you see or do you find some relationship between the preamble and the spirituality? So this was the question, sir, which I wanted to ask you, and I will request you to answer this question of mine, sir. Over to you, Lahoti, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. It's true that I have written, I won't say it was a book, it's few notes on the preamble. Preamble has got such a vast expanse that I don't think about 100 or 150 pages would suffice to be a book on preamble. It can run into books and volumes. I'm reminded, I just could lay my hands, I've taken a printout and kept with my text of the Constitution. See, when, and it's a very pertinent question, and I would rather collect courage to say that while interpreting the Constitution, the preamble is often lost sight of. I may quote the words of Dr. Radhakrishnan from his speech in the Constituent Assembly on 26 January 1947. What he said: Dharmam Kshatrash Kshatram. Dharma, righteousness, is the king of kings. It is the ruler of both the people and the rulers themselves. It is the sovereignty of the law we have asserted. See, Dr. Radhakrishnan finds dharma being reflected in the preamble, and that is what has been indicated by His Excellency, our chief guest, in his very learned speech of the day. This preamble came up for the consideration of, all the students of law would know, in the famous case of Keshavanand Bharati. And in Keshavanand Bharati's case, the Chief Justice Sikri, he observed that the preamble is of extreme importance. And what he said, I would read with emphasis. And the Constitution should be read and interpreted in the light of the grand and noble vision expressed in the preamble. Chief Justice Sikri said, it's a grand and noble vision which has been expressed in the preamble. Few know, ordinarily, the preamble is written in the beginning and then the book follows. But what happened in Constituent Assembly was that the text of the Constitution was approved by Constituent Assembly, and thereafter the preamble was drafted. The reason being that the Constituent Assembly desired that the quintessence of the entire Constitution should find reflected in the preamble. And that is the significance of the preamble. The preamble is the quintessence of the entire Constitution. पूरे संविधान का निचोड़ संविधान की उद्देशिका में प्रतिलक्षित होता है, और इसलिए जब भी संविधान की व्याख्या करने का प्रश्न उत्पन्न हो, प्रियम्बल को नजरअंदाज नहीं किया जा सकता। अब जो 4 शब्द प्रियम्बल में प्रयोग किए गए हैं, उनका आप महत्ता देखिए, और अतिशयोक्ति होगी यदि मैं ये कहूं कि यदि प्रियम्बल को पढ़कर उसी पर कोई चिंतन करे तो कदाचित उसे संविधान पढ़ने की आवश्यकता ही नहीं है। ये ज्यादा बड़ी बात मैं कह रहा हूं, छोटे मुंह बड़ी बात, बट विथ कॉन्फिडेंस आई से व्हाट आई मीन। देखिए, 4 शब्द प्रयोग किए गए संविधान के उद्देशिका में: जस्टिस, लिबर्टी, इक्वलिटी एंड फ्रेटर्निटी। इतने विद्वान लोग थे, चाहते तो 4 शब्द लिख करके छोड़ देते, पर नहीं, उन्होंने प्रत्येक शब्द को क्वालिफाई किया। और ये जो क्वालिफाई किया है, बहुधा क्वालिफिकेशन लिमिटेशन होता है, बट द फ्रेमर्स ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन who adopted the preamble have qualified each of these expressions by certain words which follow. And please remember, when I read these words, each of them gives one an expansion to the concept encompassed in the potent words used in the preamble, 4 words. So it gives an expanse. At the same time, it provides limitations as well. Expanse doesn't mean go haywire. Please limit yourself. अब देखिए, in this slide, kindly read with me. Justice, just not justice. Justice means anything. न्याय, जो भी हो, हमारे समझ में आया वो न्याय कर दिया, नहीं. Justice, social, economic एंड पॉलिटिकल, सामाजिक, आर्थिक और राजनैतिक. अब ये उन्होंने, अब राजनीति में क्या न्याय होता है, पर संविधान निर्माताओं ने ये कहा कि न्याय केवल ये नहीं, कोर्ट में आए 2 आदमी, उनने साक्ष्य दी, वकीलों की बहस सुनी और फैसला कर दिया, वो जस्टिस नहीं. संविधान कहता है कि प्रत्येक नागरिक और धरा पर प्रत्येक व्यक्ति के साथ सामाजिक, आर्थिक और राजनीतिक न्याय हो, ये संविधान का आदेश है. एक. दूसरी बात, लिबर्टी. व्हाट लिबर्टी? लिबर्टी ऑफ थॉट, एक्सप्रेशन एंड बिलीफ. On one side, as I said, it gives an expanse to the meaning of term liberty. At the same time, it provides limitations. The Constitution says, give liberty of thought, expression, and belief. It doesn't mean that give liberty of luxuries, give liberty of acquiring so much of wealth as you wish, collect tons of gold in your tijori. This is not liberty. Or move any place and do anything. I'm sorry to say, and I will be very guarded, just as our Honorable Chief Guest has been, that many a judgment of the constitutional courts, they are assigning a meaning to the liberty which are destructive of the moral and ethical fiber of the society in the name of liberty. The constitution framers never permitted that liberty. They said liberty is not physical pleasure. Liberty is thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. Equality of status and opportunity, and to promote among them all. Why? Why this justice, liberty, and equality? The whole purpose of justice, liberty, and equality is to promote fraternity. हमको न्याय मिलेगा, स्वतंत्रता होगी, समता होगी, पर क्यों? इसलिए कि इस देश के प्रत्येक व्यक्ति की गरिमा और राष्ट्र की एकता और अखंडता सुनिश्चित करने वाली बंधुता. देखिए, आज कई घटनाएं ऐसी घटित हो रही हैं जिसमें स्वतंत्रता के नाम पर देश को तोड़ने वाली ताकतें सर उठा रही हैं. और मैं क्षमा मांगते हुए कहना चाहता हूं कि हमारे माननीय न्यायालयों ने लिबर्टी की कुछ ऐसी व्याख्या कर दी है फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच के नाम पर. वो कहते हैं कि यदि आप देश के खिलाफ भी कुछ बोलना चाहते हैं तो बोलिए, बोलने से क्या होता है. हाँ, कुछ आप तोड़ फोड़ करें तो एक अलग बात है, पर आप देश के खिलाफ यदि नारे लगा रहे हैं तो लगाने की आपको स्वतंत्रता है, लिबर्टी है आपको. आई डोंट थिंक दैट द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एवर कॉन्टेम्पलेटेड सच टाइप ऑफ लिबर्टी बीइंग गिवन. क्यों? कि उससे हमारी फ्रेटर्निटी ही नष्ट हो जाएगी यदि लिबर्टी की हमने ऐसी व्याख्या की। नाउ द लास्ट 2-3 minutes, how this what our honorable chief guest has very wonderfully in the chosen words propounded, that how the spirituality and law are combined together in our constitution and laws, and unless the law and spirituality go hand in hand, possibly we will not be able to reach the object contemplated by the preamble to the constitution. I give just 2-3 examples. What is the source? First, let me bring it. Possibly our honorable chief guest must be knowing, but I would like to show him this book. ये जरा blurs को हटा सकते हैं क्या? Just a minute, please give me my background is blurred. I'll make it clear. Yes, this is the book. संसद भवन से संदेश भारत, compiled by Justice Dr. Rama Jois, Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha. Message from the Parliament House. It's a beautiful but a very small coffee table book. Now, the entire Parliament, which is the creator of the Constitution, the creator of all the laws, is vibrating with spirituality. But our honorable members seldom look at what is the message of the Parliament. I give you just only 3 examples, only 3. They are numberless contained in this brochure, but I give only 3. When one enters लोक सभा के सुविशाल कक्ष के अंदर, सभाध्यक्ष की पीठ के पीछे की दीवार के ऊपर अंकित है धर्म चक्र प्रवर्तनाय, ललित विस्तरह अध्याय 26 से ये लिया गया है। और उपनिषद घोषित करता है कि धर्म पाप चिंतन का नाश करता है, अतः धर्म ही सर्वोत्कृष्ट तत्व है। ये सभापति की पीठ के पीछे लिखा हुआ है। फिर जब संसद भवन के प्रथम द्वार से होकर केंद्रीय सभांगण की ओर बढ़ते हैं, तो केंद्रीय सभांगण के द्वार के ऊपर संस्कृत में पंचतंत्र का ये श्लोक परिलक्षित होता है। अयम निजः परो वेति गणना लघु चेतसाम उदार चरितानाम तो वसुधैव कुटुंबकम। ये संदेश है, ये सूक्ति, ये मेरा है, ये तेरा है, ये दूसरे का है, ऐसा दृष्टिकोण छोटे मन वालों का होता है। उदार मन वालों का तो सारा विश्व ही अपना एक परिवार होता है। That is fraternity contemplated by the preamble to the constitution. और तीसरा उदाहरण और देकर के, क्योंकि बात फिर ये लंबी होती है, तीसरी बात, राज्यसभा के प्रवेश द्वार के ऊपर अंकित है सत्यम वद धर्मम चर। ये तैत्रेयी उपनिषद शिक्षावल्ली से लिया गया है, जिसका आशय है कि कृष्ण यजुर्वेद के तैत्तिरीय उपनिषद की शिक्षावल्ली में अध्ययन समाप्त कर घर लौटे विद्यार्थियों के प्रति ये नियम दिया गया है। यह संदेश सर्वदा याद रखने और जीवन भर पालन करने हेतु योग्य है। संपूर्ण संसद में विभिन्न स्थानों पर हमारे जो प्रचुर संहिता है, हमारी एंशिएंट क्लासिक्स एंड एपिक्स में जो है, जिसमें से अनेक उद्धरण आज हमारे माननीय मुख्य अतिथि जी ने दिए हैं, सारे संसद में हमारी अपनी संस्कृति, हमारी अपनी अध्यात्म, जो अपना हमारा अपना है भारत का, वो संसद भवन में गूंज रहा है और वहीं से हमारे सारे कानून बनते हैं। हमारे माननीय संसदगण केवल एक प्रश्न अपने आप से पूछें कि जो कानून वो पास करते हैं, जो बनाते हैं, उस कानून में क्या भारत की स्पिरिचुअलिटी आध्यात्म उन्हें प्रतिलक्षित होता है। यदि होता है तो उन्हें उस बिल को एक्ट की शेप देना चाहिए, और यदि उन्हें लगे कि हमारी स्पिरिचुअलिटी के मानदंड पर, कसौटी पर ये बिल खरा नहीं उतरता, तो उन्हें इस बिल के विरोध में मत देना चाहिए। ये बात जो संसद को लागू होती है, ये न्यायालयों को लागू होती है जब वे कानून की व्याख्या करते हैं, और यही हमारी कार्यपालिका को लागू होती है जो ये व्याख्या जो कानून का पालन कराते हैं। कानून के कई मतलब निकलते हैं, कई बार इंटरप्रिटेशन का क्वेश्चन आता है। कार्यपालिका जब कानून का और अपने वरिष्ठों, सुपीरियर्स के आदेशों का पालन करे, तब प्रत्येक कार्यपालक अधिकारी को ये मानदंड अपने सामने रखना चाहिए कि क्या मैं इस कार्य का संपादन करते समय भारत के संविधान की भूमिका, उद्देश्य का मैं वर्णित सिद्धांतों का पालन कर रहा हूं। यदि उत्तर हाँ में है तो पालन करे, यदि उत्तर ना में है तो पालन करने से इनकार कर दे। धन्यवाद सीमा सिंह जी, प्रियम्बल के संबंध में कुछ अपने विचार व्यक्त करने के लिए, मुझे अतिरिक्त समय देने के लिए।